They say for history that it's the mother of life, but historians often warn that it always teaches us with a delay. When it gives us the lesson when we don't need the lesson anymore. The past and the present are interlinked and inseparable. They interpret each other. I've dealt for a long time with the demographic history of the Balkans, particularly the area populated by Bosniak population. And I always start from the premise that what happened in eastern Bosnia in 1995 has its prehistory. And I always start from the premise that a part of the population of eastern Bosnia, a great part of the population, originates from today's Serbia. Smederevo Sanjak, it used to be called, that in the 19th century, at a number of occasions, crossed Drina and entered Bosnia. 3 years ago we had two huge gatherings in Orašje and Šabac, marking 150 years of Muslims arriving to eastern Bosnia from today's Serbia in Orašje and Šabac. And I like to say that the descendants of the old Belgrade population, Užice population or Šabac population, have more relatives in today's Bosnia than in Belgrade, Užice and Šabac today. And historians often look for symbolism, they link dates. And I have to link two dates here. One is deeply entrenched into our consciousness from 1807 that marked the start of the population moving from today's Serbia into eastern Bosnia. In 1807, during the uprising when the city fell to the rebellions, we've seen the first mass emigration of Užice Muslims into eastern Bosnia. As Bate wrote a wonderful book about this event, and I have to mention here that he mentions a date that will mark our history. Užice fell on July 11th, 1807. That's the first date that marks the migration of Užice Muslims. When the uprising calmed down, they went back to their town. And the development of events will lead to the emigration of Muslims from Šabac, Užice, Belgrade, Loznica in two waves. In 1813 and 1882 in eastern Bosnia. There was not a single town in eastern Bosnia where you did not have Muslims originating from today's Serbia. Finally, these towns gave us Sulejman Tihić and Alija Izetbegović. Russian sources say that in 1862, 30,000 Muslims moved to Bosnia. And I've heard a piece of information in 2009 at Free Europe, and this helped me link two things. Života Đorđević, who wrote a book on Čukut Česma, the fountain, and the move of Muslims from Užice to Bosnia, gave a very interesting description as to how that happened in 1862. This is what he says. It wasn't long before Belgrade, Valjevo and Kragujevac districts, people from there came, Muslims around 800. They took their stuff and with the army went into a different land. When the first group of Užice Muslims reluctantly came to Bosnia, the Serbian army followed them singing, and when they started moving again, their neighbors said, "Do not look for another. Send a message to me. I will forcefully make you move again." And in 1995, the time again came for Užice population to move again. When I heard a statement by Miroslav Nenadic, who is the director of Užice Raketa company, he, for Radio Free Europe, in 2009, confirmed for the first time that Raketa buses were taking Bosniaks by buses from the two enclaves. I quote, "You know what? They called me from Republika, I don't know who exactly, and asked me to provide 5 buses to take population from Srebrenica and Žepa before the attack. They told me to give 5 buses with drivers, and they told me that some commander of Republika Srpska will wait there, some military person." Užice is inseparably linked to Srebrenica as a topic, and this is why. This is not just about the population that moved from one space to another. This is about the fact that the descendants of the Užice population in 1995 unwillingly started moving towards Užice again. NGOs left behind some wonderful information, a humanitarian right fund, Sanjak NGOs, and they gave records as to what happened with hundreds of Bosniaks who in August and July 1995 went across Drina. It is very difficult to reconstruct the overall story. It is very interesting data that the last group of young men from Srebrenica was caught in April 1996 in Serbia when the war ended. How many people crossed Drina in July and August 1995? We don't know. We can only reconstruct based on data collected by HCR. In the report of the Commission on Srebrenica of the government of Republika Srpska, there is a statement that 40 people have been given over to the army of Republika Srpska and the authorities in Visegrad. Nobody knows of their destiny. What is interesting is that the estimates are that around 80 Bosniaks from the Srebrenica area and Žepa area arrived to Sanjak. In Sanjak, in Novi Pazar, Prijepolje and Priboj, the arrest of these people lasted from August 95 to November 95, when in Prijepolje the last group was caught. I speak about this for the reason that this segment of the Srebrenica story has been completely put aside, and this is something that we should put light on, because we need to know what happened to these people. It is a great fortune that UNHCR got interested in those people, and to a great extent that they were saved. You know of the 2 big camps, Šljivovica and Mitrovo Polje, and you know that a great percentage of these people moved back to Bosnia after the war, but also a large portion emigrated. And what is interesting is that the truth on the destinies of these people are much better presented by NGOs than my colleagues, historians. I had a chance to read a text of some esteemed colleagues who talked about these people running away not from the war, but going to Serbia because they had good conditions in the camps they were located in. They had exchange offices and telephones, allegedly. Unfortunately, that's not true. And I always start from the thesis, or from the question whether there was some people who are descendants of those from 1862 trying to save themselves again, going back to the places that their descendants, that their ancestors left. I just told you that data on the number of people who have crossed Drina River in 1995 are problematic as such. International organizations report that part of people have been given over to the army of Republika Srpska in Visegrad. We don't know how many. We only know the numbers that have been recorded by the High Commission, and we know that they managed to get to European countries after the war. Some might say that historians here recall the past. Politicians say that future is important. I always stress that if we do not talk about these people and if we do not talk about what they survived, we by that show that they're irrelevant and we are sacrificing them for the second time. And what we can do is speak about all the segments of the Srebrenica drama. And I repeat, it is not something that started in July 1995. The numerous families for which evil started on July 11th, 1807 and ended July 11, 1995. Thank you.